He handed over a black card and they laughed. The next morning, he canned a $3.8 billion deal without blinking. You ever walk into a place where the air feels off? Not because something happened, but because something's about to. It was a Thursday evening in Dallas, late spring, sun still out, but the heat wasn't smothering like usual. Just warm enough to make you grateful for AC. Darius Colonel Train had just stepped out of a sleek black Escalade, his luggage wheeled behind him by the driver. Tailored navy suit, matte brown shoes, no tie, the perfect balance of money and comfort. He wasn't flashy, just sharp. The kind of man who knew his worth and didn't need to say a word about it. The hotel, the Lexington Tower, uptown Dallas, one of those high-end spots where the valet knows your name before you say it, and the front desk offers you water while you check in. Glass chandeliers, gold trim everywhere. Smelled like lemon polish and imported flowers. He was in town to finalize a $3.8 billion merger with Bentley Group, a deal that had taken nearly 2 years to negotiate. This meeting, it was supposed to be the finish line, but from the moment he walked into the lobby, eyes tracked him, not in a respectful way, more like confusion mixed with judgment. A white couple by the espresso bar looked up, glanced at each other, and turned away, whispering. A man in a plaid golf shirt nudged his friend and gestured subtly toward Darius's luggage, the kind of whispers that never hit your ears but still cut through your skin. Darius felt it. He always did, but he kept moving, steady, composed, like always. He reached the front desk. The clerk looked up from her monitor. Young, maybe mid-20s. Auburn ponytail, hotel name tag, chewing gum. She thought nobody noticed. Hi, checking in. Yes, he replied, offering a smile. Reservation under Darius Colonel Train. She clicked for a moment. He glanced around, taking in the place. He'd stayed in hotels all over the world. Seoul, Zurich, Johannesburg, and this one on paper was in that league. But the room felt different now, cold in a way that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. All right, Mr. Coltrane, she said finally. That'll be a credit card and ID. Darius reached into his wallet and handed her his Centurion card. You know, the black card, solid metal, no limit, not something you apply for. They invite you. And Darius had one. But when she saw it, she paused, then gave a short laugh. A real laugh, like she couldn't stop it in time. Oh, wow. Okay, she said, her mouth twisting into a smirk. You carrying one of these around? The way she said it, like it was a toy, like it had come from a cereal box. Darius blinked, slow and patient, not angry, not surprised either. He'd been here before, not in this exact hotel, but this moment. Yeah, he knew it well. He waited a beat. No reaction. She didn't catch the disrespect. Or worse, she did and didn't care. Is there a problem? He asked calmly. She shrugged. No, just haven't seen many of these come through here. Usually it's, executives. And there it was, right behind him. Someone chuckled. A low, nasal laugh from the plaid shirt guy again. Darius turned his head just slightly, caught the man looking away, then looked back at the clerk, who was now waiting for something. Approval, validation he didn't know. Instead, he reached slowly into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed. Yeah, he said, it's me. No, don't go in yet. Cancel the room block and call Raymond. Tell him the merger's off. Her expression didn't change at first. It was like her brain didn't register the words. The whole thing, came the voice through the phone, muffled, but serious. Every inch of it, Darius replied. He hung up, then leaned forward, meeting the clerk's eyes. I'll find somewhere else to stay. He turned, rolled his bag out behind him, and disappeared through the revolving doors. Quiet, graceful, in control. But behind him, the room felt different now. But the real storm that hadn't even started yet. The hotel's assistant manager, Kelsey Durham, had been watching from the far end of the lobby, just behind a tall marble column near the business center. She saw the exchange, or at least the tone of it, but didn't move fast enough. And now the man in the navy suit, with the air of someone important, had just walked out, leaving silence in his wake. She rushed over to the front desk. What just happened? The clerk, Megan, looked up, still twirling her pen between her fingers. Just, some guy tried to check in with a fake Centurion card or something. He got all weird when I asked him about it. Kelsey narrowed her eyes. A fake Centurion card? That's what it looked like? Megan said with a half shrug. Those things aren't just handed out, right? He didn't even seem like she paused, catching herself. Kelsey's voice dropped. Did you ask for another form of payment? No, he just made some call and left, like he was important or something. She snorted lightly, probably bluffing. Kelsey stared at her a moment longer before pulling out her tablet. She tapped a few times, her jaw tensed. His name was Darius Colonel Train. Yeah, that's what he said. Kelsey turned the screen toward Megan. There, in plain view, was a very important person guest profile, platinum rating, founder and CEO of Lucent Applied Technologies, one of the most influential tech firms in the U.S. His net worth had been speculated to be over $1 billion. Megan, she said, keeping her voice as steady as possible. That card was real, and he's not just someone. He was the reason the entire Bentley Group was staying here this weekend. Megan blinked. Wait, seriously? He's the one leading the Bentley merger, the one that was set to bring in nearly $30 million in long-term contracts to this hotel chain over the next 3 years. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. He just cannoned everything, Megan. Kelsey didn't wait for a response. She turned and walked briskly toward the elevators. Upstairs in the penthouse suite, 3 top executives from Bentley Group were lounging around reviewing the presentation decks for the next morning. Howard Lynn, COO, was sipping on club soda while Trina Mendes, general counsel, scrolled through her emails. Dev Shaw, the CFO, had his jacket off and sleeves rolled up trying to unwind. A knock hit the door, sharp and sudden. Trina got up and opened it. Kelsey stepped in visibly tense. I think we may have a serious problem, she said. Howard looked up. What kind of problem? Mr. Coltrane. He's gone. Gone where? Dev asked. He left the hotel, canceled his reservation, said the merger is off. Silence. Trina blinked slowly. Off? What the hell happened? There was an incident at the front desk. Kelsey said one of our employees mishandled his Heck in. Dev set his glass down carefully. What kind of mishandling? She questioned his card, mocked him in front of other guests. Howard sat up straighter. You mean she racially profiled him? Kelsey didn't answer. She didn't have to. Trina stared at her tablet. This isn't just bad, this is catastrophic. Howard stood and ran a hand through his thinning hair. Do you understand what kind of signal this sends? That we couldn't even host the lead on the deal without insulting him in the lobby. PR is going to have a field day with this, Trina muttered. Dev paced the room. He's not going to be quiet about this. He's powerful, but not the kind that wants headlines. He doesn't need attention. He's got influence. And they all knew influence moves faster than noise. Back downstairs, Megan was still at her post, her earlier confidence long gone. A nearby bellhop, Andre, who'd seen the incident but kept his head down, finally stepped over. You know, he said, keeping his voice low, that man, he's the kind that people remember. The way he walked out, that wasn't a tantrum. That was someone sending a message. Megan didn't respond, but for the first time she looked uneasy. Andre added, I've seen people blow up over the wrong room or not enough towels. He didn't blow up. He just decided you weren't worth his voice. But outside the hotel, Darius's silence was already making more noise than words ever could. Darius didn't go far. Just across the street, actually. He checked into a modest boutique hotel, the Bishop House, known for its quiet style and non-nonsense service. No grand chandelier, no bellhop pretending to care, just a clean room and respect at the door. That's all he needed. He sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, the city humming faintly through the double-pane glass. The call he made earlier had already started setting off alarms. His chief of operations, Raymond, had probably cleared the meeting room already. By tomorrow, every stakeholder at Bentley Group would be wondering what went wrong, and that was the point. Darius wasn't impulsive. He'd built Lucent Applied from scratch, from a laptop in a shared office space in Tulsa to a billion-dollar company with operations in 4 continents. His moves were always deliberate, measured. Even his silence had weight. Still, he wasn't made of stone. He looked down at the black card still in his hand, resting against his palm. Solid, heavy, a symbol, and in the wrong hands, apparently a punchline. His phone buzzed. Raymond, need me to come to you? Darius, no, just handle the numbers. I'm done talking. Raymond understood. Another buzz, this time from Camille, his sister back in Tulsa. Camille, heard you pulled the plug, you good? He stared at the message, thought about replying, thought about telling her the truth, that no matter how many awards they give you, no matter how many zeros are in your account, someone will always think the card in your hand isn't yours. Instead, he wrote, Darius, yeah, just tired. Camille replied with a single line. Camille, get some rest, and don't let this turn you cold. He put the phone down and sat back. No anger, no tears, just a deep ache. Not the kind you feel in your chest, the kind that lives in your bones, familiar, old, like something you carry and forget until someone pokes it. And that girl at the desk, Megan, she didn't invent that moment. She just repeated it, recycled it. He'd seen it in classrooms, at airports, at country clubs, even in his own boardroom. People assuming he was someone else's assistant, not the man running the table. Back in college, one of his professors had pulled him aside after class and asked, Hey Darius, I've been meaning to ask, who's paying your tuition? Not, how's the coursework going? Not, do you need help with the labs? Just curiosity about money, because the math didn't add up for him. Smart, black, and present. And years later, even with a black card and a private jet, he was still getting the same test, just in fancier buildings. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Room service. He opened it to find a young man holding a tray, 2 bottles of water, and a fruit plate. Compliments of the manager, sir, the boy said. He saw your name on the check-in log. Just wanted to say he appreciates you staying with us. Darius nodded. Thank you. Also, the boy added, my dad works in tech. He talks about your company all the time. Said you built something no one else even thought of. That made Darius pause. What's your name? Jaden. Well, Jaden, tell your dad I said thank you. Jaden smiled, nodded, and left quietly. Darius closed the door and looked out the window at the Lexington across the street. Tall, polished, expensive, full of people who still didn't understand what they just lost. Not just a deal, not just a guest. They lost a lesson. But that lesson was about to get taught publicly, loudly, and without mercy. By 8:17 a.m. the next morning, the boardroom at the Lexington's executive conference level was supposed to be buzzing with final prep. Instead, it was silent. The low-ing walnut table, usually full of printed decks and lattes, sat untouched. Nameplates already positioned, water bottles chilling, pens lined up perfectly. But no one had entered. Not one lucent rep, not even Darius's assistant. On the other side of the floor, Howard Lynn was pacing. I'm telling you, if he doesn't walk through that door in the next 10 minutes, we've lost him. Across the room, Trina Mendez wasn't even looking up. She was glued to her phone, reading a message from Lucent's legal team, effective immediately. We are withdrawing our interest in the Bentley merger. We will not be rescheduling negotiations. We consider the matter closed. She read it out loud. Dev sat back in his chair. That's it then. Howard finally stopped pacing. No explanation, no reconsideration. He doesn't owe us anything, Trina replied flatly. Not after yesterday. Dev leaned forward, eyes sharp. Let's be clear. The merger is dead and the fallout's going to be brutal. Shareholders are going to panic. Media will pick it up by lunch and we'll get dragged into the mess. Howard sat down, rubbing his temples. 30 months of negotiations gone. I told you, Trina said, scrolling. He's not loud, he's precise. When Darius Coltrane walks out, he doesn't slam the door. He locks it behind him and throws away the key. 10 blocks away at the Bishop House, Darius sat across from Raymond in a private lounge. Did they respond? Darius asked. They're still scrambling. You pulled the plug so fast they didn't even have time to make excuses, Raymond replied. Good, Raymond hesitated. You sure you want this on record? No press statement means they'll try to shape the story themselves. Darius took a sip of his tea. They're already doing that. Let them. We'll say what we need to when we need to. Raymond nodded, then leaned in. We just lost out on a huge infrastructure extension. That merger would have tripled our manufacturing capacity in the South. I know, Darius said. You sure this isn't personal? Darius looked him dead in the eyes. It is personal, and it's business. Raymond didn't argue. Instead, he pulled up an article on his iPad. They're running the first wave already. Blog out of Austin just posted something titled, The Black Card Backlash. Did racism kill a historic tech deal? Darius didn't react. Raymond tapped another tab, and the hotel's PR director just tweeted, We are aware of an incident involving a guest. We are investigating and take this very seriously. Darius smirked. They're not sorry. They're just loud now that they're losing money. Raymond laughed quietly, then sobered. It's wild, though. All these years you kept your head down, played the long game, and all it took was one desk clerk. It wasn't just her, Darius replied. It was the look on her face when she thought she had power over me. That smug little smile. That's what lit the fuse. Back at Lexington, panic had fully settled in. A meeting had been called in the HR conference room. Megan sat across from Susan Tramble, the regional director of guest experience, while legal counsel sat at the end of the table. I didn't mean anything by it, Megan said. He handed me this weird metal card. I didn't know they made real ones like that. Susan stared at her. You thought a man who walked in wearing a suit carrying a confirmed reservation under his name was pretending. I just didn't think. That's right, San cut in. You didn't think. You didn't verify. You didn't even ask for a second card. You mocked a guest in public in front of witnesses. Legal chimed in. We'll need to do an internal review, but I'll be honest, this is going to spread and quickly. Susan looked tired. Do you understand who you disrespected? Megan lowered her voice. Now I do. Too late, Susan replied. He's not coming back, and neither is that deal. She stood up. Meeting over. Back across town, Darius checked his phone again. Camille had sent another message. Camille, you just made the news. She attached a screenshot from a morning segment on a Dallas network. Billionaire tech CEO cancels mega merger after hotel incident. Details emerging. He watched the clip. The anchor struggled to explain what happened, relying on allegedly, reportedly, and sources close to the matter. But it didn't matter. The truth was already out there. The real story wasn't about the card. It was about being dismissed, laughed at, reduced, and then turning that disrespect into a lesson too expensive to ignore. But what no one saw coming. This was only the first domino. The world knew Darius Colonel Train as a billionaire CEO. Press releases said visionary. Analysts called him the quiet architect of modern logistics AI. But none of that told you where he came from. He grew up in Midwest City, Oklahoma, just outside of Oklahoma City. Not exactly a tech hotspot. Not exactly the place anyone expected greatness to grow. His mom, Charlene, worked at the post office. His dad, Leonard, was a mechanic who owned a little shop 2 blocks from their house. They never had much, but they had a worn kitchen table where every night was dinner. No mat. What? And it was around that table that Darius first learned the rules, not the ones they wrote down. The real ones. Don't speak unless you know your facts. Let them underestimate you. Just don't believe them when they do. And the hardest one. You'll have to be twice as good for half the respect. He heard it from his parents, his uncles, teachers at his high school, who pulled him aside, not to push him forward, but to remind him what he was up against. He never forgot. At 17, he got his first real taste of rejection. He'd applied for a state scholarship, full ride, top of his class. AP credits stacked, volunteer hours, recommendations from teachers, and a local pastor. They gave it to a boy named Kevin. Kevin had lower grades, fewer extracurriculars, but his dad owned a dealership and golfed with the school board. Darius sat on his porch the day he found out, gripping the rejection letter like it owed him an apology. His mom came outside, sat beside him, and said, "We already knew this road wouldn't be straight, but it's still yours. Keep walking." So he did. He got into Oklahoma State, took out loans, worked nights at a printing shop, graduated early, and when he applied for his first tech job, they told him he was overqualified for the entry role, but not quite the right fit for the next level. He started coding on the side, built a tiny warehouse management system that helped his dad track parts inventory at the shop. That tool got noticed by a local auto supply chain, then another, then another. By 32, Darius had built Lucent. By 47, it was running international logistics for over 80 major companies. But no matter how high he climbed, there were always reminders. Boardroom introductions, where they skipped over him to shake hands with his white CFO. Investors asking if he was in sales or engineering. Reporters calling him humble when he was just measured, knowing every word he spoke would be dissected for attitude. It wasn't new, it was just polished. So when that girl at the desk looked at him like his card was a joke, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw a black man checking in alone. And in her mind, that made the card suspicious. It didn't matter that his name was engraved in silver, that he built an empire from a 2007 ThinkPad and a rented garage, that he had more power in his phone than most people would ever touch. She still saw him as a question mark. That night, back at the Bishop House, Darius pulled out an old manila folder from his briefcase. Inside were a few personal photos, stuff he kept close, not because he needed reminders, but because he believed in honoring the climb. One photo showed him and his dad standing outside the garage. Leonard had grease on his shirt and a smile that didn't come easy. Darius was barely out of college, then another one, a newspaper clipping from when Lucent got its first $1 million contract. At the bottom of the folder was a yellowed envelope. Inside it, the scholarship rejection letter. He kept it not out of bitterness but clarity, because every time someone looked at him sideways, every time someone questioned how he got here, he remembered they weren't starting the fight. They were just showing up late to it. He picked up his phone and opened a message draft to Camille. Darius, you were right. That moment didn't turn me cold. It just reminded me I never stopped fighting. Some people throw punches. I write checks. He didn't send it. He just smiled to himself, because tomorrow he wasn't going to tell his story quietly. He was going to say it loud enough that the whole industry had to listen. By Friday afternoon, the story was spreading like wildfire. Not from Darius. He still hadn't said a word publicly, but it didn't matter. The silence itself had become news. Someone from the Bentley Group, maybe out of guilt, maybe just trying to save face, leaked the cancellation. An anonymous user on Twitter claiming to be close to the deal posted a thread titled, "A Black CEO Was Laughed At While Using His Own Card." The next morning, he killed a $3.8 billion deal. The thread laid it all out. No dramatic wording, just bullet points, receipts, names, and screenshots. It ended with a single sentence. Power doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it just walks away. Within 3 hours, it had 2.4 million views. By the evening, it was the #1 trending topic nationwide. At the Bishop House, Darius was in the lounge again, this time sipping a ginger ale and reading quietly when Raymond stormed in holding his phone. You seen this? He handed Darius the screen. It showed a clip from a morning talk show in Los Angeles. A host was nearly yelling. This is not about a credit card. It's about assumptions. This man could have bought the hotel and still got treated like he needed to show ID twice. You think this doesn't happen every day to people without the bank account? Come on now. Darius let out a slow breath. They're going to try and spin it, Raymond warned. You know that, right? The hotel already started damage control. They're releasing statements talking about retrying internal investigations. Standard playbook. Darius looked out the window. Let them spin. You sure you want to stay quiet? Raymond asked. Because if you don't take control of the narrative. I already did, Darius interrupted. Raymond paused. When? The second I walked away. At the Lexington, chaos was still unfolding behind the scenes. Megan had been removed from her shift pending investigation. A few of the front desk employees were being questioned. The GM had been in 3 meetings already, all of them with lawyers. One email thread included the phrase, "This is becoming a brand-level problem." They were scrambling. One employee, Andre the bellhop, who had witnessed the incident, posted something on Facebook that afternoon. I've worked in that hotel for 6 years. I've seen celebrities, CEOs, athletes, but I never saw a man more composed than Darius Collin after he got humiliated. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just made a call and left like a man who already knew his worth. That's the kind of power you don't learn in school. That post went viral. People began sharing their own experiences in the comments. Stories of being followed in stores, laughed at in luxury settings, denied respect because of skin, hair, tone, or the wrong last name. It wasn't just Darius's story anymore. It was everyone's. That evening, Darius sat alone in his room watching the coverage. The local NBC affiliate showed a segment with his name splashed across the screen alongside a photo of him from a tech conference 2 years ago. He looked strong in that image, focused, the kind of photo that made people stop scrolling. The anchor read from a script, while Mr. Colonel Train H. has yet to issue a public statement. The financial impact of his decision is already being felt across corporate circles. Analysts say the canceled merger will ripple through logistics and retail sectors within weeks. He muted the TV, then turned to his laptop, opened a document, and started typing. He wasn't ready to talk to the media, but he was ready to talk to people. And tomorrow he would do it on his terms with no reporters twisting his words, no headlines watering it down. Because if people were going to hear his voice, it was going to sound like truth, not damage control. Saturday morning, no suit, no cameras, no stage. Darius stood behind a plain podium in a quiet community center in South Dallas, in front of a room full of local business students, interns, and young professionals. No fanfare, no press invites, just a few rows of folding chairs, some notepads and phones set to record. It was an event planned months ago, a mentoring session. He almost canceled it after the hotel incident. Not because he didn't want to show up, but because he didn't want to bring the storm with him. But when the story broke, the organizer called and said, "They need to hear from you, not from the headlines." So Darius showed up. He looked out at the small crowd. A few nodded. A few just watched, still unsure if the man in front of them was really him, the same man trending on their phones all week. He cleared his throat and began. "I was asked to talk about what leadership looks like, what success looks like. But that's not what I'm going to do today. I want to talk about what power looks like. Because some people think power is about shouting, threatening, making people afraid. But that's not real power. Real power is knowing who you are and knowing when to leave the room without saying a word." He let the silence sit. "In my line of work, I've signed 9-figure contracts in 10 minutes, but I've also been mistaken for security at my own headquarters. That's just the world we live in, and it doesn't stop even when you reach the top." He paused, scanning the room. Some of you might be thinking, if that can happen to him, what chance do I have? And I get that. But let me tell you, they don't get to define you. The smirks, the doubt, the assumptions, that's them. What you build, what you walk away from, that's you. Someone in the second row whispered facts under their breath. Darius smiled. He continued, "The truth is, I didn't cancel that deal out of emotion. I did it because values matter more than contracts. If someone laughs at your presence, they'll never respect your partnership. And if you tolerate disrespect in silence, it only gets louder." Another pause. "You don't fight everything with rage. Sometimes you fight it by succeeding anyway, by choosing where to put your energy, by walking out with your dignity and letting the silence say everything." Then he leaned forward slightly. "So when they question your place at the table, remember you are the table, and if they can't recognize that, you don't owe them a seat." After the talk, people approached slowly. Some just to shake his hand. Others asked questions, thanked him. One young woman in a mustard hoodie looked nervous, but stepped up and said, "My dad followed your story this week. He said it gave him hope. He's a janitor. And he said you walked away like a king." Darius took that in. He didn't have a clever reply. He just nodded and said, "Tell your dad he raised someone brave." Later that evening, he sat in his office at Lucent HQ, feet up on the desk, looking at the sunset through the tinted glass. His phone buzzed again. Camille saw the clip. "You said it better than any of the news did. Darius, they never listen right the first time anyway." "Camille, true. But this time I think they heard you." He leaned back, finally breathing in deep, because it wasn't about the hotel anymore, or the card, or even the deal. It was about a mirror he held up to the system, and the fact that the reflection made people uncomfortable. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to scream. He just needed to move in a way that made people think, and now they were. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away with your head high and let the world feel the silence you left behind. If this story moved you, share it, talk about it, remember it. Because someone out there is being told right now that they don't belong in the room. Music